The Immovable Race. Rise of the Plebeians, a trilogy by Mikale. Chapter title: The High Order. Piss. I heard a local little girl say from behind the curtain of a large pottery stand with Middle and Far Eastern handcrafted oddities littering the shelves. Adam bid us to follow the little girl, and we followed her through the curtain, and soon we stepped into a quiet alley after exiting the interior of the pottery stand, escaping the lively atmosphere of the market. We followed her through the slums, disappearing through hidden holes, and walking through random rooms. Suddenly, we were standing in a dark trash-filled alley, on the backside of some poorly kept 19th century abandoned factory that the residents of the slum had made their own. At that point I asked, "How much further?" And the little girl quickly turned around with her index finger pressed against her lips with her free hand, as she tightly held onto a fire escape with the other. Then she put her index finger to her temple and pointed to a hole in the decayed brick exterior of the building leading to a small crawl space with a faint light pouring through. Before we knew it, the little girl had disappeared into the hole. Our muzzle followed her, as did I, with Adam following behind. Walking down a dark and hot hallway, we gravitated toward the light. We walked past a large infinity symbol scrawled upon the wall crudely in chalk. Reaching the end of the hallway, we could see that the source of light was an uncovered light bulb, sitting atop a silver stand emanating from a low room. The small girl stopped just in front of three men, who suddenly appeared from the shadows on either side of us. One man stepped forward, standing just in front of us. His skin was the color of sesame seed, and his dark pupils cut through the surrounding darkness, looking at both Adam and our muzzle on either side of me. The mysterious man bent down, placing a few coins in the little girl's palm, and gently patted her head before she ran off down some dark corridor heading toward a destination unknown. "What are the star and the seal?" he sternly asked in a distinct East African accent. "The Star of David and Seal of Solomon, who each lost grace by his heel," I said, staring back. The suspicious man smiled a wide smile, showing nothing but the white of his eyes and the ivory of poorly kept teeth. The stranger laughed a hearty laugh as he lit a cigar in the dark and indulged. "So you are the great Moshiach? May God bring glory to your name. We mustn't keep the High Order waiting," he said, and then he motioned to us to follow him. "Wait," he blurted out as we began to walk forward, causing his men to become filled with anxiety. "Who is the girl?" he asked coarsely. "She is a newly elevated seeker. Her business is with the High Order," I replied. "No. She stays here," he said. Adam and I looked at each other with dumbfounded expressions. "It's between you and High Order," the East African said. "So be it," I replied. "Our muzzle, wait here until we return," I stated. We walked into the low room at the end of the hall. We were all forced to minimize our stature. The room was insignificant, having a bare cement floor with the exception of a dusty area rug below. Overhead a rickety ceiling fan vibrated awkwardly back and forth, circulating the sweltering desert air. The lonely lamp lit the room brightly as our long shadows were thrown across the wall. Not long after we had stepped into the doorway, a pair of small children raced quickly past us, and walked on through the only other exit to the room, heading toward some dark and depressing playground. The East African's two henchmen secured each exit, looking out into the dark halls to make sure no one else was approaching, as they stood holding the door handles with the doors themselves barely cracked open. "On three," the East African said with a low voice and with intensity in his pitch. "1, 2, 3. He called out. The two men slammed the doors shut simultaneously, and the dusty rug slightly elevated from the floor. He grabbed the rug and tore it back, causing dust to burst forth, congesting the air. A secret trapdoor was revealed. A strong light seeped through. The man gripped a handle and pulled open a wedge-shaped door 180 degrees. A pristine winding staircase could be seen leading down toward a hidden passageway below. The East African silently directed us down the mysterious staircase. Following Adam, we descended downward for what seemed like a good while until we arrived at a large blast-proof steel door at the end of our descent. The dark man took a medical swab from a hidden stash in the wall and rubbed his inner cheek, and proceeded to place the sample into a small opening next to the large door. Within an instant, a three-dimensional projection of a DNA strand appeared with its image rotating in space, and soon a green light coincided with a short chime, and the door creaked open. "The High Order is expecting you," said the East African, urging us into the room. We stepped into a long room with 4 aged men of varying but distinct origins, and 2 worn and timely women staring at us intently from across the room. 3 empty seats parted the order, with 1 seat in particular dwarfing the others. Each one appeared old and wise, wrapped in a peculiar cloth with beautiful colors that the light playfully shimmered off of. Together we swaggered into the long room, steadily making our way toward the forefront, where impatiently waiting was the High Order. Each of the elders of the Order represented one of 8 ancient civilizations. Representing one of the oldest remaining civilizations of the Order was Zo, a Karelian, an ancient South American tribe, who built impressive pyramids hundreds of years before the Egyptians built the 3 wonders of Giza. He was a proud and stern-looking man, having high cheekbones and straight ebony-colored hair. His skin was brown and smooth like a high gloss. His beady dark eyes pierced my mind from across the room. Upon his head was a crown filled with stones of jasper. With the appearance of some ancient Nubian queen, Liber represented the tribes of Africa. Her skin was pure ebony. Her lineage was that of the oldest known civilization on Earth, formerly inhabiting the plains of South Africa. On her head was a crown of sparkling sapphire as she studied our expressions. With a long and full white beard, flowing hair, and a maze of creases across his pale face, Enoch was one of the last surviving remnants of the ancient Druid priesthood, driven underground by the invasion of Gaul by the Roman Emperor Julius Caesar. His crown was covered with stones of chalcedony, and his face was ever so slightly twisted as if a mild stench were approaching. Toward the middle of the order, and slightly off-center, stood a great chair, with a large emerald embedded at the height of its back. It was said to have last belonged to King Og of Bashan, the sole remaining Rifim, and descendant of the race of giants destroyed by the Great Flood. Lord knows that Moses dealt the final blow himself. At the center of the order lay a beautiful and empty chair of gold embedded with stones of sardonyx. It belonged to the lost race of Antarcticians, said to have been a victim of crustal displacement, a theory that even Einstein supported himself. The lost race was shrouded in mystery, buried under the ice. To its right lay a crystal throne with sardius jewels sparkling high atop its back. It was the seat of the lost race of Atlanteans, who had been sacrificed to the sea. Chief Atohorto, who was now looking more noble and at peace than he had appeared only months before, wore a crown of chrysolite, whose light overpowered the room. He represented the native tribes of America. And to his right sat Zion, whose eyes were narrow but proud, with buttermilk skin and dark shimmering hair pinned up into a loose bun. Her ancestry could be traced back to the primitive tribes of the legendary Yellow Emperor, representing the Asiatic tribes. Her gaze was fast upon us as we stopped near the front of the long and spacious room. "What have you been up to? What kind of mischief have you instigated?" croaked Enoch, taking the liberty of speaking first. "I do not understand," I replied, bewildered. "Please provide a full report, Moshiach," said Liber with a cooler head. "The plebeian movement in America is like an underground spring, with swift-moving currents of hope and determination slowly and invisibly altering the geography of the land," I replied. "Our educational sector is flourishing with the presence of our learning centers now in over 71 cities across America. Infinite Industries has solidified property in the country's 25 largest cities for the construction of nitrogen fueling stations in preparation for the release of our new line of nitrogen-powered vehicles. We are also subsidizing the installation of nitrogen fueling sources within existing gas stations in preparation for our transition into the second phase of the movement. Our solar power stations are well under construction and are expected to become operational within the next 6 to 9 months. Our legal team is also prepared for the next phase of the movement. I continued. That is enough, exploded the elder Enak, as if tortured by the sound of my voice. How many have shed blood in furtherance of your so-called plebeian movement? Each life is precious, yet such casualties can never be anticipated. As the enemy moves I said before being cut off. What enemy do you speak of, Moshia? Interrupted Enak. I stood there quiet as the rest of the order looked equally perplexed. What enemy is there? What so-called enemy have you seen? Enak spewed, continuing his rant. What evidence do you have to show us? I reached in my inner breast pocket and pulled out a small glass case housing the microchip we recovered from Cherub's brain. We found this chip implanted in the frontal lobe of a spy. We believe that the corporations are planning something significant. More recently, we discovered the appearance of a secret military force, federally sanctioned by the US government to eradicate the plebeian movement, I stated. The High Order began to whisper and exchange voices rapidly back and forth with signs of confusion. What do you recommend? Asked Zion with a grave voice after their brief deliberation. I recommend that we immediately implement the second phase of the movement. We cannot wait any longer. We must act now, I pleaded. Your decision-making abilities thus far have come into question. We can sustain no further loss of life. Zoe demanded aggressively. If we fail to act now, there is no telling what the consequences could be. I responded, not daring to giving up. Fail to act? Enak chuckled coldly. You have already acted. Gasps and angry groans filled the room. Moshia, what does he speak of? Asked Liber. Moshia has already organized an assembly of plebeians without consent of the High Order. Such an act is in direct violation of the Order's authority, revealed Enak. I noticed that the chief began to speak up, but just as he began to intervene I gave him a sharp look that forced him to relax in his seat. I recommend that the Order have a vote on the matter, said Enak, sounding as if his words were flowing from a split tongue. Moshia, what do you have to say in regard to these serious accusations? Asked Zoe. I stood firm and remained silent. Your silence leaves us no other choice but to reprimand you, fumed Zoe. What? Blurted out Adam. You are still young and lacking discipline and the wisdom that only experience can bring, said Enak. By a show of hands, all those who believe that Moshia has been reckless and intentionally disobedient to the instruction of the Order, lift your right hand. I looked around the room and all hands were raised. A robed priest appeared from a corridor to my left and approached the council before walking toward us holding a pen and document. We recommend that you receive further training, said Zoe. Further training? I exclaimed. For how long? I asked, finding the judgment to be wholly unjust. Until you are notified with further instructions, said Zoe, lacking emotion. Maybe it might benefit you to take heed the next time instruction is given. You must learn, Moshia, that you don't make the rules. The overarching mission means much more than any one of us. No being is above the Order, said Enak, interjecting. We cannot jeopardize the progress we have made by the rash unilateral decision-making of one. There is a hierarchy that you must respect. Any further insurrection, and you shall be stripped of your authority and forced into exile in disgrace, he finished with a smug grin spreading across his face. Sign this document stating that you will no longer partake in your own devices without consent of the Order, said Enak, now straining his voice. I just stood there looking at the Order as the priest held out the document in front of me, hardly believing what was unfolding in front of me. Sign the document, Moshia, yelled Enak ferociously while I stood there firmly with inaction as my only response. Your insurrection will have dire consequences, Moshia. Please have reason. Blurted out Chief Hato. There is no reason behind the Order's decision. It is clear that right no longer reigns here. I am prepared for whatever consequences the Order sees fit, I said with conviction. It seems that you have chosen unwisely, said Zoe. We will not tolerate insubordination, especially during such a pivotal juncture. In the meantime, the plebeian movement will fall under the direct control of the High Order. But I am needed back in America. There is still much to be done, I protested. If it was your purpose to do anything other than what we resolve, then the source of all existence would have given us a sign, and no such sign has occurred, said Enak, almost spitting foam from the mouth. No one man is greater than the entire race. No being is above the universal laws. Adam is to return immediately to America with the girl. The question of her advancement will be revisited at a time we see fit, said Zion. And which wise one is to provide me with further enlightenment? I asked, trusting that things would turn out for the best. You are to immediately report to our brother Hermes, Zoe replied. Our guides will travel with you to the edges of Ethiopia, and from there you will be on your own. Yes, added Enak most triumphantly. Send the hermit priest our regards.